Well, hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jeremy Leffler and I work in the policy office at the National Science Foundation. And it's my pleasure to welcome you today to our final week and final day of the NSF Virtual Grants Conference. Before we begin, we're going to take a poll to find out a little bit more about you. If you're using Zoom from a desktop browser, you may not be able to access the poll. And for best results, we recommend that you view this presentation from the Zoom application. If you attended our first week of the Grants Conference, you know that this virtual conference is taking place over 2 weeks with 2 sessions per day. The content is similar to what it would be for an in-person Grants Conference. All of the sessions have been pre-recorded, however, we will be taking live Q&A. For information about the sessions, the presentations, and our speakers, please visit the conference website. If you do have questions during this session, please submit them using the Q&A function. We are encouraging attendees to upvote questions. And to upvote a question, you navigate to the Q&A function and click on the thumbs up button. And this will bring the most popular questions to the top of the Q&A window. We are answering your questions as they come in, and we will continue to answer questions live at the conclusion of the presentation. Please do keep in mind that we do have a very large audience for these sessions, so it's possible we may not be able to get to all of the questions. This session is being recorded and it will be made available on our website at nsfpolicyoutreach.com in the coming weeks, and we'll be sure to send an announcement by email as soon as those sessions have been posted. If you have any technical difficulties during this presentation, please use the Q&A and someone will assist you. Thank you for participating in our poll. We are happy and excited that you can join us as this marks our first virtual grants conference. And I want to remind you to please be on the lookout for survey emails so that you can provide feedback to us on how this has been going and how we might be able to improve for the future. We hope that you have enjoyed the conference and all of the sessions that you have chosen to attend. And so I'm now pleased to present this session on the NSF Faculty Early Career Development Program, and this session will be covered by Dr. Lisa Rome from the NSF Directorate for Geosciences.
Hello, welcome to the NSF Virtual Grants Conference Career Program Discussion. I'm Lisa Rome. I'm in the Directorate of Geosciences. I work for the Division of Ocean Sciences and the Office of Polar Programs as their Career Program Officer. I'm going to give you a little background about the Career Program to get started. The Career Program is the NSF's most prestigious award in support of early career faculty who have the potential to serve as academic role models in research and education. So a career award is NSF's stamp that we are excited about your research and we want you to communicate that to audiences, the next generation of scientists and to the American public. The other interesting thing about career awards is that recent career awardees form the pool of scientists who are eligible for the PCASE Awards. That's the Presidential Early Career Awards for scientists and engineers. PCASE Awards are selected by the White House and conveyed by the President. So these are the very prestigious national awards, and you can't get one unless you have a career award. So the goals of the career program are to emphasize the importance of NSF places on early development of academic careers, to provide stable support at a sufficient level and duration to enable awardees to develop careers not only as outstanding researchers, but also as effective and committed educators. We want to encourage the faculty and particularly the academic institutions to value and support the integration of education and research. The career guidelines are here. The solicitation number is 20-525, so if you go to our website, you can search for that solicitation. The next deadline date is Monday, July 26, 2021. I strongly encourage you to go to the career program website for lots of information about the career program. That includes the solicitation, the FAQs or frequently asked questions, and we have lots of answers for those. There's a list of division contacts. There are links to recent awards, and there are recordings of webinars. I'm going to start with general advice for proposers, and this applies to any proposal at NSF, so it's not just career, but you should sign up for automated emails from NSF so that you receive notice of funding opportunities as soon as they are published, and that includes program solicitations and dear colleague letters. You can focus in, you can tailor the kind of information you want to receive and which directorates you want to get that information from. So you're not going to be overwhelmed by too many emails. This is important because a program solicitation is published online and you would get an email announcing that solicitation, and then there would be at least 90 days until the program proposals are due. So the due dates for proposals are always 90 days after a program solicitation is issued. And that is not a lot of time to carefully read a solicitation and understand what we're asking for and to put a proposal together and to get it submitted. So you want to know as soon as possible when a program solicitation is issued. So definitely sign up for emails. You want to read the program solicitation very carefully, and you want to read the frequently asked questions because these documents contain a lot of information and probably answer the questions that you've got. And you should read those very carefully before you contact the program officers with questions. If the program officer cuts and pastes and in response to your question from the solicitation, you need to go back and read the solicitation again. You want to volunteer to review proposals and serve on panels. The best way to write a good proposal is to have read some and thought carefully about them. And if you serve on a panel, you really see what makes a proposal stand out and makes it most fundable. And finally, you want to know where your research fits at NSF. And we're going to spend some time today talking about how you know where your research fits. It's important to know how NSF is organized. We are organized very much like an academic institution. So we have 7 directorates that are divided along disciplinary lines, and we have 2 offices, the Office of Integrative Activities and the Office of International Science and Engineering. I'm going to talk more about this later, but you should be thinking about where your science fits at NSF. So assuming you know where you fit, you want to wonder if you're eligible for career. To be eligible, you have to hold a doctorate degree by the proposal deadline. You have to hold at least a 50% tenure track or tenure track equivalent position as an assistant professor. Associate professors are not eligible, and there are no exceptions. You have to have both research and educational responsibilities at an eligible institution, and we're going to talk next about what makes an eligible institution. And you cannot previously have received a career award, so you can't get 2 career awards. And you can't have submitted more than 2 previous proposals. So you get 3 chances to submit career proposals prior to getting tenure, or and a major question that we get is, what is the tenure track equivalency? So tenure track equivalency for the career program means an appointment that is expected to last at least the 5 years of the career grant, an appointment that has substantial research and educational responsibilities, and it's important that your project relate to your career goals and your job responsibilities, as well as to the mission of the department or the organization. Departmental letters must affirm that your appointment is at an early career stage and you're in pre-tenure status, and it must explain how your appointment satisfies all of these requirements for tenure track equivalency. So your departmental letter is really important. We'll talk again about that in a little bit. So is your institution eligible? Eligible institutions are academic institutions that award degrees in fields supported by NSF. It can be a nonprofit or non-degree granting institution, such as museums, observatories, or research labs, but it's important to note that your position at that institution has to be career eligible. So Both the institution and your position have to be career eligible. And we do encourage proposals from all institution types, including minority serving and primarily undergraduate institutions. And that includes both 2-year and 4-year primarily undergraduate institutions. So how is a career proposal different? We're looking for excellence in science, excellence in education, and we want to see the integration of the science and education. You might be wondering, should I submit a career proposal or a regular research proposal? And the things you want to think about are, do I want to collaborate with someone else? Because a career proposal is a single PI project. That includes both research and educational activities that are integrated, but you cannot have a co-PI. They're not allowed. So if you're thinking that you really want a collaborator, you should think about a regular research proposal. Career proposals require a departmental letter of support, and you want to think carefully about those letters and how your department can support you in your efforts. And most importantly, career proposals are hard to write. You have to describe your research and your education goals within the 15-page limit. And you have to be ambitious, but not overly ambitious. And the aims are lofty, and the career awards are really a lot of work if you get one. So the questions you want to ask are you at the right stage in your career to undertake the commitments of a career award? It is a lot of work, and you want to think carefully about what you'll be doing. And you want to have demonstrated a commitment to both the research and educational goals that you are hoping to pursue. So if you decide to go ahead and submit a career proposal, what is included? We've got the cover page, proposal summary. I'll go over those briefly, and then I'll spend most of the time on the project description, the departmental letter, letters of collaboration, which are optional, and a budget. On the cover page, you have a single PI only. No co-PIs are allowed. If you put a co-PI on the cover page, your proposal will be returned without review, and that's very disappointing if you go to the trouble of writing a proposal and have it just sent back. The project summary should include a description of the intellectual merit, and there you want to focus on the science and the research, and you want to mention the integration of the education efforts. In the description of the broader impacts, you really want to focus on the educational activities you're proposing, and you want to mention any societal benefits or other outcomes of the science that you're doing. In the project description, your plan should reflect your own disciplinary and educational interest, as well as the needs and context of your organization. And different disciplinary fields and different research organizations have different expectations. There's a wide range of research and educational activities that could be appropriate for the career program. So this is not, there's no formula for a career proposal. You can propose to work with K-12 schools, you can propose to work with after-school programs, undergraduates, graduate students, societies, professional societies. You can work with museums. You could work with film companies. There are no limits to where you could focus your efforts on the education. You may also wish to pursue additional activities such as an entrepreneurship, industry partnerships, or some sort of policy work that enhances your research and education plans. So be creative and be thoughtful about your project description. Again, the proposals have to be submitted to one or more disciplinary research programs. You have to choose one place to submit, although you can request co-review by other organizations within NSF. Typical award sizes vary by directorate and by division. We'll talk about that in a minute. Expectations for the scope of the research and the education activities vary with disciplinary community norms. And most importantly, you want to talk to the division contacts and the program contacts for more information on what is the norm for your research area. For interdisciplinary proposals, you want to contact all of the relevant program officers and program division contacts. So again, we're back to where do you fit within NSF, because that's quite important. So all the directorates do accept career proposals. That includes biological sciences, engineering, mathematical and physical sciences, computer information sciences and engineering, geosciences, education and human resources, and social and behavioral economic sciences. Our Office of Integrative Activities does not accept career proposals, and the Office of International Science and Engineering only agrees to co-review and co-fund. They do not accept career proposals either. So hopefully within these 7 directorates, you know where your science fits at a very high level. So we'll talk now about drilling down to the program level, because that's what you need to do. You need to understand which program fits your science. So I'm going to use the Directorate for Biological Sciences as the example. The directorate level, the highest level is the biological sciences. Underneath that, there are 4 divisions, and under each division, there are programs. So perhaps you fit in the plant genome research program, but maybe you think, well, I could also do cellular dynamics. So you want to contact the division representatives for both of those divisions and the program officers for both of those programs to talk about where your career program proposal might fit. And suppose you just can't figure it out, you can go here for the career contacts and try to contact some of the career directorate contacts. For example, here's the Directorate for Engineering. There are 2 names. I've taken the names off just for space purposes, but the Directorate for Engineering has 2 names of program officers there, and each one of the divisions has 1 name and the email contact and the phone number for each division within engineering. So do contact us and figure out where your science fits at NSF. And again, if you think you might be in multiple programs, or if you're uncertain, you can go to the NSF awards database, and you can search. You can do a keyword search in the awards database to find recent awards. Each award abstract includes the information on which program funded that award. So you can contact those programs or the program officers responsible for those programs. And finally, you can send an email to that program officer with a short paragraph describing your research goals and asking, does my science fit in your programs? And they will help you. They will help you figure out where your project might fit. So the departmental letter, we've also talked about the fact that this is a very important letter. It's a 2-page letter. It's a commitment to the PI's proposed career research and education activities. It's a description of how the PI's career goals and responsibilities mesh with that of the organization and the department. It's also a description of how the department will contribute to your professional development and how they will mentor you and support you through whatever efforts you have to integrate your research and education. It's also a statement indicating your eligibility for the career program, either as a tenure track or tenure track equivalent junior appointment. So this letter, again, is very important, and it's an opportunity for you to figure out departmental support. There are often offices on campus that you might consult to get some support for example, if you're going to do a course-based undergraduate research program, you might go talk to the undergraduate teaching office on your campus and get some campus support, campus-wide support, and departmental support. Letters of collaboration. These are optional, but if you are working with an external organization or if you have senior scientists that will be helping you at some point in your work, you should consider getting a letter of collaboration. And the letter is actually a form letter. So there's no information in the letter. The letter is a statement that says, if the proposal submitted by Dr. X is selected for funding, it's my intent to collaborate and commit resources as detailed in the project description. This must not recommend or endorse the PI or the project. So all the relevant information has to be described in the project description or in the facilities and equipment and other resources page. That includes the intellectual contributions to the project. Perhaps they were giving you access to a site, or they're letting you use instrumentation or a facility. They may be offering to furnish samples or materials for your research. It could be logistical support, evaluation services. If you are proposing to do work in the Arctic or the Antarctic, there are important facilities that you have to consider, so you want to be sure to have those letters in place. Educational collaborations, if you're working with a K-12 school, you would need a letter of commitment. If you're working with a museum, a letter of collaboration. If you're working with a museum, you want a letter of collaboration. So perhaps if you're mentoring U.S. students at a foreign site, you might also want a letter of collaboration. Let's talk a little bit about personnel and budgets. Again, co-PIs on the cover page are not allowed. You can request support for other senior personnel, consultants, or subawards via the consultants part of the budget or via subaward, as long as they have a limited role in the project. International activities are encouraged if appropriate for the project, and again, you can contact the Office of International Science and Engineering for advice on including those activities. The programs may support buyout of an academic year time for teaching intensive institutions, and again, you want to check with your program officer. Budgets. They vary. The minimum award size is $400,000 for a 5-year duration for most of the directorates that we talked about, with the exception of the Directorate of Biological Sciences, the Directorate for Engineering, the Office of Polar Programs, and there the minimum expected is $500,000 for the 5-year duration. Again, these are floors, not ceilings. So be aware of the budgets and be careful when you put together your budget request. Some programs do prefer to make awards at the budget with the budgets that are close to the anticipated minimum size. So you again want to check with your program officer. We know that science costs money, so we want you to be accurate with your budget and be reasonable. Please be careful and know what NSF can pay for and what we cannot pay for. Again, talk to your program officer and read the Proposal and Award Preparation and Policy Guide, PAPPG. Perhaps you need equipment, you might need to travel, facilities and logistics. Sometimes if you're working at a facility, you include those costs in the budget, and sometimes they're not included in the budget. And you should definitely talk to the program officer to find out how to charge, how those facilities you might want to use will charge, and whether to include them in your budget. The budget justification page is very important. There are now 5 pages, so be sure to use that to describe your budget very carefully. And most importantly, ask for money to support your educational component and your broader impacts. If you are planning to work with undergraduates, you would like to support those undergraduates with stipends. If you are working with K-12 teachers, you need to support those teachers with stipends. If you're working with a museum, you may need to have money in the budget to support a display or someone at the museum to collaborate with you. And finally, a timeline. There are timelines listed on the NSF website, so do go there to look, but the basic advice is to start early. And you can submit the proposal before the deadline. I highly, highly recommend that you consider submitting at least 3 weeks before the deadline. because there are always technical glitches. There's always something that happens. You also have to coordinate with your sponsored research office, and there may be many other scientists at your institution trying to submit their career awards at the same time. So you need to plan ahead, you need to submit early, and the great thing about submitting early is that you can go back and change the proposal up to the deadline, but you will not miss the deadline. So plan to submit very early. Don't wait until the last minute, and don't submit on the deadline day. How will your proposal be reviewed? We use the standard NSF review criteria for career proposals, and that is the 2 criteria of intellectual merit and broader impacts. And under both of those 2 criteria, there are these sub questions. So the question is, to what extent do the proposed activities suggest and explore a creative and original, potentially transformative concepts? Is there a well-reasoned plan? Is it organized? Does the plan incorporate a mechanism to assess success? How well qualified is the individual and the team and the institution to conduct the proposed activities? And finally, are there adequate resources, that's your budget, to carry out the proposed activities? The budget and also the facilities at your institution. So we do encourage you to contact your program directors, email the program officer, and ask if your research fits in their program. And there's some other questions you can ask the program director in addition to confirming the program fit. They might give you advice on common proposal preparation errors. They can help you understand the reviews from a previous proposal. If you've submitted your career proposal before, you can help ask them to look at the reviews and help you think about how to respond. They can point you to resources that you can use to help write a better proposal, and they can give you general advice on good proposal writing. They cannot help you write your proposal. They do not send a copy of your proposal to them and ask them to review it. Reminder, these are our general advice for everything. You want to sign up for automated emails. You want to read the proposal solicitation and the frequently asked questions very, very carefully. Please volunteer to review proposals and to serve on panels. We need reviewers all the time. You can send an email to the program officer with your 2-page CV attached. In the email, you should have a couple of sentences with keywords about your expertise, so that they can quickly go back and find you if they have a proposal that they need a particular expertise to review. And finally, it's important to know where your research fits at NSF. Thank you very much for your interest in the career program, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Lisa, if you could unmute yourself and start your video. We've received a lot of questions, and we've answered a lot of questions also in the Q&A, so you can look there and see a lot of the answers that we've been typing away at during the recording. And I think, Lisa, a lot of times what we're doing is trying to debunk rumors. A lot of questions are based in rumor. But what I'd like to do is start with some of the questions that were upvoted by folks, that most people would like to hear. And so the first one is, can you give some examples of research and education integration?
Yes. If you have developed so if your research perhaps is a new field or a little bit different from what is traditionally taught in your department, and you want to develop a new course, that is certainly something that you would want to consider. Developing a new course is fairly common in career proposals. And when you do that, you want to consider trying to include some innovative educational pedagogy when you develop the course. So perhaps you want to flip your classroom, or you want to include other sorts of hands-on activities or something that is a little bit different than the normal lecture process. So that is certainly encouraged. You might want to work with K-12 teachers. And if you do that, you want to be sure to get collaborative letters from the schools that they work for, or the school system in some way. You want to provide some stipends for those teachers if they are going to be putting some time into working with you. You may want to work with the museum, and you could bring your research into the museum in some innovative way. For instance, creating a new museum set piece that would illustrate your science. So, and that you might want to include costs for the development of a new museum, or at least support for someone who is working at the museum. So those are the things you could consider. There are plenty of others as well. So those are just some few examples.
A couple of the questions that I answered in the Q&A during the presentation, and I see a couple of them here, were people asking how they can get copies of a funded career proposal. And what I've answered, and this is a question we get quite frequently, is that there's only one way that NSF will give you a copy of a proposal that was funded, and that is through a Freedom of Information Act request that you make to NSF. That can take some time because there are some redactions that have to take place, but there are other ways that you can do this. Some of those ways might be just contacting a colleague at your institution and asking him or her if they would be willing to share their proposal. You may want to contact your sponsored projects office because they may be able to put you in touch with somebody who has already agreed to do that. I don't know if you have any other suggestions for that, Lisa.
I suggest asking people in your department or in your network, your professional network. Someone probably has a career award and would be happy to share their proposal with you, but we cannot do that.
What are the expectations for the education/outreach components, and how do they differ by directorates or even by programs, divisions?
So the expectations do vary. Some directorates use the career award. They tend to have those earlier in someone's career as an assistant professor, and so the education components might not be as well developed, whereas some directorates or divisions tend to award things a little bit later after you've had a year or two of experience or perhaps gotten another NSF award. So you might have a little more robust education component at that point. The departmental letter is important because whatever education program that you propose, you really want to make sure that it aligns with the department goals and that you are enhancing your career by doing whatever education component that you propose.
Okay, and let's see, here's another question. Can you submit the same research aims in a career proposal and in a regular research proposal concurrently?
No, you cannot submit the same proposal to NSF twice, but you might be able to submit a different research-focused proposal, and you have to call your program officer to get their approval to do that. Normally, if you're submitting a career proposal, they would discourage you from submitting a research proposal as well. But again, it does depend on each program officer. They may be happy to take both proposals, but they have to be different. You can't propose the same topic or the same research in two different proposals to NSF.
Correct. Is there a mechanism for PIs to indicate that they are at a primarily undergraduate institution when applying for a career award?
The best way to do that is to include it as something in the project description. We do recognize primarily undergraduate institutions, and we do want to fund PUIs, but I don't think there's an actual way to indicate that on the cover sheet. But you should definitely highlight it in your project description.
Great. And now a few questions about the reviews and the review process. So in going with my earlier kind of theme of debunking rumor, question is, are you penalized in reviews if you've received NSF funding already?
No, as a matter of fact, well, it might depend on the directorate, but normally program officers like to see that you've received an award before and that you've performed well on that award.
And then the next one with regard to reviews, can you provide some more detail about what happens with your proposal when requesting co-review by another program?
Well, if you request co-review, you have to submit the proposal to one single directorate or program. So it has to go to one program officer, and that program officer is in charge. And if you indicate that you would like co-review, it's good to contact the other program that you want to co-review it and give them a heads up, because they won't know the proposal has been submitted. And you contact the lead program officer as well and say, please consider this as a co-review. And that lead program officer is responsible for contacting the other program, deciding if it is appropriate. It might not be appropriate for co-review. They will contact the other program officer, and the two program officers will decide whether or not it's a co-review and how to go about the co-review. Typically, co-review proposals might go to two different panels. And so it might be reviewed by two different panels, or sometimes the program officer will say, fine, I will sit in on your panel and I'll listen to the panel discussion and accept the reviews that your lead program officer gets for your proposal. So we do co-review in quite a different, we have a variety of ways that we co-review, and there's no requirements that it be co-reviewed. If the secondary program officer decides that it's not applicable to their program, you might think it's applicable, but if they don't, they can say, no, I'm not going to co-review this.
Okay, and then the next question is asking is, can a junior faculty who's not received a career award serve as a reviewer on a career panel? And I guess I would add to that, after, in related to that, what would you recommend for people that want to be reviewers for career panels? How should they proceed?
So if you would like to be a reviewer, certainly send your just a short statement, a paragraph about your research interest, and attach a 2-page CV, send that to the program officer in your area of research, and ask to be a reviewer and say you're particularly interested in career proposals. You can review proposals. Usually panelists have some greater experience than just say a first-year faculty member, but it depends. So I would definitely contact the program officer, volunteer, and to be a reviewer or a panelist, and that's the way you do it.
Okay, and the next question is asking whether the budget may include buyout of teaching load.
Yes, but that, again, you want to contact the program officer to check on that.
Okay. This question may need a little bit more information. It may need to be, you may need to contact a program officer, but the questioner is asking if there's an applicant who submitted a career proposal or a similar type of award to the Department of Defense, to NIH or the VA, but hasn't heard back, are they still eligible to apply for an NSF career award? I think that we might need a little bit more information on that one, but
yes, I think that you need to certainly acknowledge that you submitted another proposal and haven't heard back. That would be a minimum.
That's correct. Yes. And then you may have touched on this as well, but how important is it to secure other funds prior to being awarded a career award?
If you're referring to other NSF funding, like,
it's not clear from the question, but I'm going to assume for this session that if the other NSF funding.
Okay, that varies by directorate, and some directorates, again, it could be your very first award, and I have seen that in all the directorates, but typically, I think in engineering, they're often your very first award, and less so in the geosciences.
Okay, and what are some examples of what you called mechanisms to assess success that are appropriate for career proposals?
If you are creating a new class, you want to have an evaluator work with you to make sure that the students are learning what you're trying to convey. Usually your institution has some support for you to evaluate your classroom teaching, and you should take full advantage of that. Be sure to make the best possible use of all the resources that your institution can provide for you. This is a really important part of doing your education component, because you don't want to do this alone. You can get lots of support for your education work, usually from your department or from your central university resources, to help you. Perhaps you want to take a class on being a better mentor or being a better teacher, or you can include those kind of things in your proposal, and the funding for that is usually provided by your institution. So it's not something that you have to budget for, but you have to acknowledge that you're going to participate in those sorts of activities.
Okay, the next person writes, they understand that co-PIs are not permitted, but what about other senior personnel, such as a faculty associate? Can they include those on there?
Yes, you can have other senior personnel or consultants, but they do have to have a limited role. They cannot be a major player in your proposed research. So perhaps you're trying to learn a new skill, and they're going to train you to use some new piece of equipment, or collaborate with you a little bit, and maybe they'll give you access to some instrumentation or run some samples for you. That sort of work is fine, but to be the equivalent of a co-PI but just listed as senior personnel is not allowed.
Okay, you talked about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, reviewers will flag that. If they think that the person has too big a role, then that will probably cause trouble with your reviews.
Right, and you talked about getting your proposal in prior to the deadline, and someone here is asking what aspects of the proposal can be modified after submission but before the deadline.
You're able to modify all of the proposal. You can get it submitted, and if you decide that there was something that was terribly wrong, you can resubmit components of it, or the whole thing.
Okay, the next question, somebody is asking about stipends and whether they should be budgeted in participant support or in other direct costs. And I'll just speak up here from the policy perspective that you have to look at, this is for students, you have to look at what is their activity. Are they being trained in an activity as trainees? Are they attending an NSF sponsored conference or training activity? Then they could be paid for through participant support. But if not, then it would likely go into other direct costs. I don't know if you have any experience with seeing that in budgets in the career program.
Someone asked about REU students, and you could include an REU, research experiences for undergraduates, as a participant support, but that's a separate sort of a category.
Right. Do outreach activities need to account for our COVID-19 social distancing that we're doing right now as part of this conference, or is it okay to assume that we'll be back to normal by the time funding actually comes around for this next round, and the deadlines are in the summer of 2021? So I don't know if there's been discussions about that.
I certainly hope so. However, this whole crisis has really made us move to a different way of teaching. We do a lot more online, just like this conference. And you might want to keep some aspects of that virtual education effort because it's effective, not because it's COVID, but you might be able to reach more people. You could do more public outreach. So I hope COVID will not be a factor, but we certainly have learned some lessons that should continue to be used. So,
absolutely, great. What are the pros and cons of a career proposal being reviewed by two programs in one division?
If the programs are in the same division, they are usually communicating quite closely. So I think that is usually a strength, but it depends. So you would have to contact the program officers.
Okay, and then going back to the debunking of the rumors, I was told that I'm more likely to be funded if I keep it close to the minimum award amount, I guess is what they're referring to. Is this true?
Well, the minimum award amounts vary. So in some directorates, that is true, and that they tend to just fund at the minimum. Other directorates, I know in geosciences, we tell you to ask for what you need to do your research, and we tend to be a field-based science, so our proposals tend to be more expensive.
Okay, and is there a minimum year of experience as a tenure track faculty required prior to submitting a career proposal?
No, there's not.
Okay. Part of the eligibility requirements include, and this is a quote, I'm assuming from the solicitation, in an appointment that is expected to last the 5 years of a career grant. How is this conveyed or otherwise communicated to NSF? And does NSF allow career awards regardless of age and time since the PhD? For example, you worked in industry and returned to academia.
Yes, as long as you are an assistant professor, it doesn't matter when you got your PhD. So there are no requirements there. And the departmental letter is how we confirm that your appointment is likely to be lasting for at least 5 years. So the departmental letter is really important if you have some sort of a non-traditional alternative eligibility.
Okay, this next questioner says, I recently received a regular NSF grant, I guess an NSF research award. Will that affect my chance of a career proposal if the two proposals are different but still related?
That depends on the division, the directorate, program officer. So contact them and ask them if you can submit a career.
Okay. If someone was an associate professor before, in another country, but moved to the US recently as an assistant professor, can he or she still be eligible for a career proposal?
I think that as long as you are an assistant professor, that is all that is required. You might want to contact the program officer and check on that, but just so that they're aware.
And also, please do check the eligibility section of the program solicitation as well. Is it okay to apply for an REU supplement after receiving the career award?
Yes, you can apply for REU supplements, but it's discouraged. If you're going to include an REU student, the REU solicitation says you should include that student in your original proposal. If some event happens and you have the opportunity to include students when you didn't anticipate that opportunity, then an REU supplement might be appropriate, but you should definitely contact the program officer for your award and ask if they would be willing to consider a supplement request for an REU, because those vary across the foundation as well.
Okay, and then in other proposals, this questioner has said, I've seen advisory boards as a mechanism to assess success. Would a board of other experts be appropriate for a career project?
Are you assessing the success of the research or the education? Because
it's not clear from the question, but
yeah, for education components, typically you get an evaluator. An external evaluator is best, but sometimes the university will help you with evaluation of an educational component. And research is a different ballgame.
Okay, and this person writes, it's interesting to hear that engineering funds more first-time PIs, while geosciences might favor someone who's been funded previously. Does being a co-PI on a previously funded NSF proposal count as having prior NSF funding experience?
Yes.
Yes, and I would mention that at NSF, we don't make a distinction between the responsibilities of a PI and co-PI on our awards. What are the common reasons for co-review if the PI did not request it at all?
Well, the program officers have the authority to co-review any proposal that comes in, and so that is a decision made at the program officer level. If they decide that something should be co-reviewed, that's what happens.
Okay, and this next one is, can you give some more information about tenure track equivalent? I'm a teaching faculty. Will I be eligible to submit a career proposal?
If you have an active research as a required component of your position, or if you have demonstrated some active research, but again, I would contact your program officer.
Okay, and the next question is, can we use the results funded by other federal agencies, other federal awards, as preliminary data for submitting a career proposal?
Yes, I don't see any problem with that.
Okay. What are the PI's responsibilities if they receive a career award and 2 years into it, they take a sabbatical to work in industry?
Anytime you take a leave of absence from the university or you're going to be away from your proposal for a while, you have to notify NSF. And Jeremy, do you have more information on the process for doing that?
There is information on transfer of is that what you're asking about?
No, if you take a sabbatical, if you're taking some time off from the grant, there's a notification that you have to send to NSF.
Right. there's a notification, or it's actually not a notification, it's a request for a long-term absence from the project. And so that's something that you submit to NSF for approval, and then that would be routed to the program officer, and there would have to be some discussion in terms of whether that could happen. With career, it's probably very different than from other research proposals, because this is made based on the qualifications of that person. And in another research proposal, for example, the institution could decide to have a substitute PI for the project, but in this case, it's quite a bit different, I would imagine. Will Career consider proposals from historically Black colleges and universities and minority serving institutions?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. This one may have been answered before, but how much of past grants and preliminary work is needed to guarantee success in a career proposal?
There are no guarantees. So I just urge you to make your best effort and read the solicitation, read the FAQs, and talk to your department about what they are supportive of.
Okay, I'm just scrolling through the questions that we have left, and it looks like we've answered most of these in some form or another. So I do, we're pushing up against the hour here, and I do want to thank you, Lisa, for taking the time to present this session and also stick around and answer so many questions. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank all of you for attending and being part of this. And please do, again, be on the lookout for surveys and evaluation for these sessions. I hope you've had a good experience attending these sessions, and I wish everyone to be safe and be well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy. Bye.